Greetings, my friends. Thank you for watching this video, and if you would be so kind, please subscribe if you like what you see. Help our channel to keep growing and keep fighting the war to save pop culture. Together, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. Enjoy, and thanks. The Book of Boba Fett has been a mixed bag up to this point, and that's being kind. While the show does have its fans, and I'm very happy for anyone enjoying this latest installment of the Star Wars saga on Disney+, for me it has been pretty slow up until this latest chapter, in which we finally see a glimpse of the Boba Fett we all loved in Empire, in an action sequence that was brief but exciting, offering a glimmer of hope that in the final stretch, Book of Boba Fett is going to deliver the goods. Before we get to this review, I have a rumor to share with you about some upcoming cameos in the show. Sources suggested to me earlier that Han, Luke, and Leia would be making an appearance in Book of Boba Fett before the show was finished, and I made a video to that effect. However, following that video, I had other sources contact me disputing that story, and here's what they said. Yes, Han, Luke, and Leia are going to be reunited in the Favreau-verse. That is definitely going to happen, but the timing of my other sources was off. This would be the coup de grace, the biggest development in the Favreau-verse thus far, so they don't want to blow that moment too soon. These sources say that they will likely do that reunion down the road, perhaps in Ahsoka, but in the meantime, they're going instead to go with Han and Chewie making an appearance in Book of Boba Fett. This makes a certain amount of sense, since Boba Fett was an adversary of Han Solo, and that appearance would be sufficiently exciting to drum up the publicity they want. So there you go. Again, these are only rumors and I can't verify them, nor do I know what to believe here. I'm simply updating you on what I've heard. And unfortunately, given the fog of war surrounding Hollywood in general, it's not unusual to hear contradictory rumors. One of the many things that makes it hard to report on Tinseltown. I've also heard some very weird rumblings that Gina Carano may return to Book of Boba Fett along with the Mandalorian. Gina was, after all, spotted on the set with Jon Favreau. I published that rumor probably a year ago, I can't quite recall. And now there are vague hints that she may be making a cameo in Book of Boba Fett, vague but persistent. That said, frankly, at this point, I give this rumor extremely little credence. I've tried to track it down, and I can't find any direct confirmation. No one will say one way or the other. So it may be the greatest secret that's been kept since the return of Luke Skywalker, but I'm not really buying it at this point. All I can do is shrug. I will simply say the return of Gina Carano in Book of Boba Fett is a possibility, albeit an extremely remote one that I can't get any confirmation for. I think that brings us up to date on the rumors around this show, but now on to the review. To help me review Book of Boba Fett Chapter 4, I recruited Echo Base Network and Mexican IronMan. And here is our review. But regardless of all that, let's get to discussing Book of Boba Fett Chapter 4. Now, I don't know, I haven't spoken with Coach, I haven't spoken with you about this, Mexican Iron Man, but I have been fairly disappointed with Book of Boba Fett heretofore to this point. But I felt that this fourth chapter was an improvement, and I'm going to start here with Coach. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts, Coach?
I couldn't agree more. We started out, Doomcock, reviewing the first episode, and we gave the first one a 7, and then we found ourselves in the minority, and we were really surprised when Nick and I did a live review of Chapter 2, and we thought it was horrible, and I gave it a 4 out of 10, and the rating on the Book of Boba Fett at the time was a 71% audience score. And when we watched Chapter 2, Nick and I were both like, well, what's the rating going to be now? This is going to be terrible. And then everybody's talking about how great chapter 2 was, and that's the one with the Tuscans dancing in the desert and all that kind of stuff. Then we move on to chapter 3, and I know the Vespas, and we poked fun at that, and we made our little comedy videos, Pee Wee Herman bikes and all that kind of stuff, Power Rangers and so on and so forth. I did think that episode was a tad bit better than 2, but it was still not good. And then this last episode happened, and I was very pleasantly surprised. And in the beginning of our live review this time, we were literally looking into the camera and we were saying, please don't suck. Please don't suck. And we actually gave the episode, both of us, an 8 out of 10. And we're so glad to do that because I finally feel like we got a good episode. It wasn't perfect. I don't know how much, we're going to go into it and everything. It definitely had some great scenes. There were some scenes that I wasn't crazy about, but yeah, I was good with it. And what's interesting to me, Doomcock, is when the show was terrible, like first 2-3 episodes, the media wasn't really saying anything. And now all of a sudden we get an episode that the majority of the fans were like, that was pretty decent. Chapter 4 was actually pretty decent. And now the media's coming out in droves saying they've killed Boba Fett. And I mean, I've got articles just that we're going to be going over tomorrow night where they're just killing it. They're just vilifying the show. It is very mediocre. And we've only gotten one decent, good episode so far. And that's kind of where I see it at this time.
Yeah, basically out of 2 hours of content, we got about 20 minutes that were pretty solid.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a problem. Now, I don't want to get heavy into spoilers, folks. We're not going to talk about, I think what we should avoid doing is talking about any big, across episode, plot lines or anything. But honestly, there isn't a whole lot to spoil here, in my opinion. I mean, it's such a basic plot. Mm-hmm. There's just not a whole hell of a lot going on, and certainly nothing that even if you know about it, it's not going to spoil anything because it's not complicated. There's not been a single moment in Book of Boba, I think it's fair to say, at least for me, where I've been gasping, where I've been surprised, where I've been delighted. It's been just basically kind of matter of fact and just kind of, from there to, in this last episode, some pretty cool shit. I will get to some specifics, because there's a few specifics that I think we can talk about safely without really ruining anything. But Mexican Iron Man, I would like to bring you in on this, my sombreroed, masked friend, and get your take on this fourth chapter. Did you feel it was an improvement, worse, or the same?
So it's definitely better. I had a problem with almost every scene that was shot in one way or another. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to save that for Sunday. What I will say, like, in terms of an overall, there's 3 things that I can say without any specific spoilers, because there's some things and some scenes that I definitely want to get into on Sunday. I'll save that for the Sunday show. But one is that this chapter that I like, this fourth episode, was the one I like best is the one that wasn't directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Right.
That's number 1. Okay.
Same.
Number. Hey, Nick. Number 2 is that this wasn't a good episode so much as it wasn't awful or horrible like the other ones. It's from where I sit. Now, I think the biggest problem that I have with this whole thing is, and I'm going to give it both an excuse and an explanation. This is a very mediocre show, but the biggest problem that I have with this thing is it was poorly edited. It is absolutely the worst use of flashback I've ever seen in a fandom property that I've ever liked, because I like Star Wars still. And I'm very hopeful for the future. But then again, I've been with Echo Base Network forever, and we're hopeful people. Coach is a hopeful guy. Nick's a hopeful guy. And I mean, their channel defines why people can still love Star Wars. This is why are you laughing? I mean that. Why do you laugh at that? Wait, you just got beat up for 2 weeks?
White people can still love Star Wars.
No, where?
I thought you said white people could still.
See that's you white guys. See, you white guys are so been beat up so bad. Like I triggered you with I didn't even use the word white.
I loved it. You can say that. You can say that. It fits.
Well, you know
Echo-based network where white people still love Star Wars.
No, where? Where? And wow. TM. Hashtag Team White Guy. That's me. Okay, so this thing is just horrifically edited, Doomcock, and I know your background. You're a creator. You're creative. You know how to scope out stories. You know how to map things out. You know how to storyboard. You know how to write. This thing, the writing is absolutely questionable. The acting is great. I think a lot of the special effects are pretty decent for a TV show. I think they're decent to really good. I just think that this thing's horrifically edited. So it's the worst it's the worst thing of storytelling that I've ever seen. And the use of flashback is absolutely annoying. It's so annoying that at one point I almost grabbed a notepad just to try to like resequence where I'm at with this guy. I mean, you know, it's like, and I happen to have seen this episode 4 twice. Which means that I liked that enough to go back and watch it. The other 3 I just don't ever want to see again. And I was kind of on board that I thought Robert Rodriguez might be the saving grace of Star Wars, but obviously that's not happening. At least not with this show and this series arc. But that's okay, because here's the perspective that I want to say. Let's all keep in mind when and how this thing was put together. And I first said this, I think, on Mead about 2 weeks ago after the second episode. Midnight Edge After Dark, that is, when I was on Tom's channel. And then I repeated it again a couple Sundays ago on Pop Culture Breakdown, which is that this show that we're seeing today, this thing was slapped together pre-COVID, during and post-COVID, okay? And it was a year ago. And this thing has been slapped together. So we're not going to get something great. I believe that we have to adjust our scale. We can't judge this series and say, is this great Star Wars? When there's other things that we love, motion pictures we love, maybe even things like Clone Wars that some people love. Whatever are other things in Star Wars that we love, the episodes 1, 2, and 3, which came after the original trilogy, these are things that had years of development and then tons of editing, some of it by, the great Marshall Lucas in the case of the original trilogy. So we got to look at what this thing is. It's a TV show that was slapped together. Jon Favreau's doing all kinds of stuff. We got chaos and pandemonium. You had the Gina Carano thing, which I believe we need to let go, but that's a story for another day. But but the thing is, this thing was set against a backdrop of all kinds of things going on. But what is unforgivable to me is that they've got some great shots and some good concepts in this series, and the way they're telling the story is wrong. I had a phone call with George Mulhall, a very good buddy of mine, George the Giant Slayer. We had him on last Sunday night on Pop Culture Breakdown as a featured channel. He and I had the same reaction when we first talked, which is that episode 4 should have been episode 1. And this thing, like the other 3 episodes should have been resequenced. This thing is just edited wrong. The storytelling's wrong. I shouldn't have to be in the 4th episode to find things that I like that want to make me keep going. And I committed to watch the whole thing from beginning to end, and I'm naturally a pretty optimistic person. But I'm going to be a lot of forgiving of a lot of stuff just because I know it was slapped together. And I'm also going to be forgiving of the fact that I think there could have been much more creative time invested in the script, the look and feel of the show, and then someone giving a final look to what's going out the door. Because I think right now their attention's on other places. Your video highlighted their attentions in other places. And we'll talk about that more on Sunday. So out of a score of 0 to 10, what do I give it? Well, the other episodes probably for me ranged about a 4 or 5-ish. This one, I'll give it 6 or 7. Maybe a 6-9, 7-0 at best.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, I think that's fair.
So that's my deal.
No, I think that's very fair, Mexican Iron Man. In the chat, Sinister said something particularly excellent. Sinister said flashbacks inside a flashback in a show that is set in the past. That's pretty much the problem in a nutshell with a Book of Boba Fett.
This whole thing should have been shot chronologically. Period.
I agree. What are we, Tarantino all of a sudden? There's nothing like terribly being amplified or enhanced by this narrative device. A lot of times Tarantino does it, and he's using it very intelligently to illuminate things, but this doesn't illuminate anything.
No, And even worse, because they obviously didn't have a lot of money to do a lot of stuff, the flashbacks are like, okay, I'm in a desert scene. Oh, I'm flashing back to another desert scene. Wait, what the hell? I mean, when you have flashbacks in other stories, whether it's the Godfather movie or anything else, it's a completely different set, scene, environment. And so, you know, you don't have to stretch as much mentally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I do. I want to go ahead and I want to get to a few specifics in this review, but I want to go ahead and welcome Nick of Echo Base Network to the show. And
Thank you.
Nick, just in general, what was your impression of Chapter 4?
I thought it was the best episode we've gotten so far. It was not without its issues. There was definitely some cringe stuff in it. And I definitely had a couple issues with the episode, but overall, I thought it was the best one. It is like Mike said. He watched the fourth one a second time. I actually watched the fourth one a second time too, and it's the only episode I've watched a second time since the show started that I have not fallen asleep trying to watch it a second time. All episodes 1 through 3, I tried to watch them a second time, fell asleep watching each of those, and never went back to try to finish watching them. So yeah, just in general, the episode was not without its issues. This is definitely a different Boba Fett than the portrayal of him in the OT for sure. He's a different character at this point in time. But yeah, overall, that was the best episode that we've gotten. And yeah, after watching a second time, it's probably like about a 7 for me. Maybe it's 7.5.
I think that's pretty fair. I mean, that's a C,
Yeah.
you know, in grading, and I think that's fair. I think it would have been higher, except for a couple of things. And now I just want to talk in general. Look, it's a very, very light spoiler, and frankly, these points kind of suck. So you can't spoil crap.
Yeah.
And this stuff was crap. There's a few things in there. Okay. Outside of the mod station, where all the kids are hanging out, instead of getting tattoos, they're getting body mods. and they're watching him go in, they're watching Boba Fett carrying someone who needs help into this modding store. And all these young guys are watching him with like glowy eyes, like big glowy eyes. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? I mean, this is basically looking like basically like, what do we go back in time to the 80s and we're seeing Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared Sin or some shit like that? I mean, this is the kind of crap you'd see on like, I don't know, Buck Rogers. Maybe if Buck Rogers was shot in the 80s. I mean, these corny, like over the eye glowing things.
How about when the surgery started and the music started and it was an instant Matrix flashback scene or a Matrix callback? Did you catch that? I did. It felt to me like
all I thought was the music was inappropriate and, and it sounded like some kind of silly ass like synth thing again lifted from the 80s. I mean, what the fuck? I love the 80s, but this was corny. The body mod shit for me anyway is completely like not Star Wars. I mean, it didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt like Boba Fett wandered onto some cheap 80s sci-fi cornball, you know, B movie like Laser Blast. Well, not even Laser Blast. Laser Blast had the cool reptiles that were stop motion animated, but really, it was kind of bad in my opinion. What did you guys think about that?
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm watching Star Wars when I'm looking at those people. I think they went too far, Doomcock. Like, we know that Fennec was mortally wounded. We knew that she was going to die, and we knew that she has some type of cybernetic interior, you know, in her stomach area. They went way too far, way too overboard in that part of the storyline for me. I think it's just kind of out of place, and it's just a little too much.
Yeah, and Ben Wade, the nice gunslinger in the chat, is pointing out cybernetics and mods are in lore in the EU, just not done the way they did it. Well, yeah, Lobot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lobot, Calrissian's assistant on Cloud City and Empire, sure. But
I mean, they would have had
implementation was corny.
Yeah, they would have had Darth Vader looking like a Christmas tree.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Here's another one. The thing that I thought was funny is that we remember when Luke's getting his arm fixed on and worked on, and he's testing it out, and then they do the skin graft. I'm like this chick stopped at the extra parts truck stop, and they ripped out her ovaries, and she didn't even get like they didn't even finish the job. You know what I mean? I don't know if you caught
really
that part.
didn't.
She just had to put a belt on to cover it all. I'm like, I understand. I mean, I think if you got machinery instead of your ovaries in your gut, I would want to cover that up. At least do a Mexican style and get some duct tape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really. How much is the duct tape going to cost you? But it was very jarring, and it just didn't feel right. And then when the guy put on his Borg extension. I mean,
yeah.
the guy doing the body modding, he puts on this Borg thing. It's literally like the fucking Borg with his drill and his like cutter and his pizza cutter in case Discovery pops in, they can substitute. I mean, it was just awful. In my opinion, I was literally, guys, I was cringing.
Yeah,
literally, I was alone. I was watching it. And during that entire thing, I was like shaking my head and saying, "Oh no,
Yeah.
and literally like squirming in my seat and kind of holding my head in my hands because that was not good."
Nick had a few drinks that night while we were live streaming our reaction, and Nick, as soon as you saw the main mod surgeon, what did you say?
I was like, that looks like one of the androids from G.I. Joe.
That's not what you said. That's not what you said. You said, Rick James, bitch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was like, Rick James is now in Star Wars. Who is this guy? This does not feel like Star Wars. And he was just like, the way he talked, like, it just felt out of place, like it didn't belong. And then, of course, all the weird, Borg-like creatures, people walking around there. It just really felt out of place and weird.
Absolutely, and they're saying like Slyke Tech says Book of Boba Fett is still better than the entirety of the sequel trilogy. Well,
Agreed.
Just be patient, guys. We're going to get to the things we liked about it. This is the things that we didn't like.
Sure.
Yeah.
So be patient because we're gonna get it. And Michael S says, "You got an ATM in that torso, light bright?" Asks Palpatine. That would be great. I got an ATM in that torso, light bright. That would be perfect. If Palpatine had come on and said that, I'd have lost my shit and totally. Just take my money. That would have been too good. But Mexican Iron Man, quickly, did you hate that scene? Like that scene? What do you think?
I hated the scene. I felt it was like a cheap Matrix ripoff. I just couldn't. I took pictures. I'm not going to bring it up on screen. I don't want us to get hit by Disney. But I've been taking screenshots of things I thought were ridiculous when I've been watching it, and that scene is just ridiculous. I mean, even the arm thing. I rewound it to look at it again, and when I saw it the second time, also, like the thing that the device is supposed to be using to operate, like it wouldn't even. Like it doesn't even work like the way. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like it's the whole. That thing could have been cut. Like they need to figure out something else. Just take her to regular doctor and whatever the hell, and But I'll tell you this much: they've killed us. There's not going to be any sexual tension between these two characters because they done ripped her insides out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the part that really made me cringe. The second part, look. This is like, well, I wouldn't even call this a spoiler again because who cares? I mean, literally, they spend a chunk of time going back to the damn Sarlacc to look for Boba Fett's armor. Now, dude, Boba Fett was conscious when he, burrowed his way out of the Sarlacc, broke the sand. He was in full fucking armor. Then he passes out. He wakes up and his armor is stripped. So he fucking knows it's not down in the Sarlacc. And yet going back in the Sarlacc to look for his fucking armor that isn't there. I mean, that was just dumb, folks. That was really dumb. I had a problem with that.
Yep.
What did you guys think of that? Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. The whole armor thing makes no sense. He knows that it was gone. I don't know if he was, delirious or dehydrated or what when the Jawas took it, but he knows he didn't have it. And he has to know that he used it to get out. Like he used his flamethrower basically to save his life. So that part definitely makes no sense. I didn't like seeing the beak down in there. You knew that it was still alive. You had that, that 80s horror, that moment of silence and still, and then it jumps out at you. I'm with you. I didn't like that scene at all. And I didn't like, flying Slave One, like Slave One nearly being taken out by the Sarlacc. Like they were close. They were, and the way that they made it look was that Boba actually got kind of lucky. Again, he got lucky to have survived this encounter with the Sarlacc again. And I just don't like that. They have him getting lucky way too often in this show.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. Mexican Iron Man, what'd you think?
I thought, well, first of all, I'm not going to cover stuff you guys have covered. Agree with what's been said. I'm going to add to that. It pissed me off that someone had to be stunning and brave and save him from this encounter, and that the charge, which we had seen so much of that in Attack of the Clones during the asteroid chase, that it basically just stumbled and fell in there. Like, what if it ended up just on the sand? Would it have blown up the ship? I mean, there's no deliberate fighting in here. It's exactly what Coach said. Everything's by accident. By the way, that's the second time within 14 minutes in the episode that she saved. I'm like, it's getting old for me. I mean, I want to see Boba Fett do something. Like, seriously, like act like Boba Fett at some point, someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully before the last 10 minutes of the 7th episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nick, anything to add to that?
Yeah. Just like you guys said, I thought that whole scene was stupid. I didn't like the way Slave One just kind of hovered right above the mouth of it. It would have been a lot cooler if he was flying out there and he said, I got to find my armor, but before we go looking for it, there's one thing I got to take care of. And then he flew to the Sarlacc and then dropped one of those seismic charges down the mouth of it and then flew up. And then you see it blow up, him take the Sarlacc out, and then him fly off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not to go there to look for his armor, which he should have known that he didn't have, that he had when he escaped in the first place. So, yeah, they definitely should have changed that for sure.
And then they actually have him go down in there without his armor and emerge all covered in, digestive juices, which, should have been
which his armor was supposed to have saved him from. But now he's going down there without the armor.
To look for the armor.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
that was a problem. Let's talk now about what we liked about this episode. And there's just a badass scene with Boba Fett doing the first Boba Fett-like thing that he's done, I think, this entire series, which was basically go out there and take revenge on someone in a really, really cool, badass way. I got kind of chills looking at that. I mean, I loved that scene. That scene was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I mean, unreservedly loved it. I wish it had gone on longer, but boy, that was great stuff. I loved it. What did you guys think? Look, Mexican Iron Man, what did you think of that?
I loved it. That absolutely was the best scene by far. That's a real chase scene. Even what I noticed most too, and I think Tamura's doing a great job. Okay, so he's a great actor, and it does bum me out that the actors don't have a better story to tell, kind of thing. But I love that scene. I love the way I look, the look on his face. It was determined. It was focused. It was deliberate. I bought in. I was all in. That scene, 10 out of 10, easy.
Yeah. I mean, easily 5 of the stars that you guys are giving it this week was just off of that one scene. That's my first favorite scene over the series. My second favorite scene was in the very first episode with the Ray Harryhausen-like monster in the dunes. I love that moment. And Boba Fett actually was better. The bounty hunter chick was better in this. They were actually talking and making sense. And it just, in terms of character development, in terms of action, all these kind of snafus aside, in general, I think it was superior. Nick, what'd you think about that moment?
On where he took out the biker gang.
Yeah,
that definitely was probably by far the best scene in that episode. As soon as they showed them when we were doing our reaction, I was like, he's about to wipe these dudes out, and me and Coach were talking about it, and then right behind them you see his ship coming in, and I was like, oh yeah, they're toast. They are toast. And sure enough, but in the moment I was like, are they going to Disneyfy this moment right here? I'm feeling that he's about to take them out, but is he going to like land the ship and be like, hey guys, did you kill my friends, and try to talk to them or something? And he didn't. He came in and freaking wrecked that whole entire gang, which was really awesome.
It was. And I don't know if Disney was listening or not, but I said any company that won't show a severed arm on the floor is the wrong company to be making Star Wars related material. Since, I mean, we got that level of violence in the very first one. And son of a bitch, this episode we see a severed arm on the floor. Now we don't see the stump, unfortunately, and we don't see the blood, but still, the implication is there. It looks like Boba grew some balls this episode. Coach, what'd you think about all this?
I love the scene. When you focus on Boba and Slave One in that scene, it's definitely a 10 out of 10. When I went back and watched it again, the second time, I focused on the Nikto bikers, and I realized how easy they made it for Boba. Because as soon as Boba starts firing, he's unloading on these bikers. They all stay in a group. And I'm like,
well, they
why
don't
the
want
hell
to
would
get
you
a
go a
ticket.
different way?
Yeah, they don't want to get a ticket for getting off the road, for God's sake.
Start scattering.
The scene could have literally been another 90 seconds long as they scatter out, and he's still waxing them all.
Would have been so much better.
Yeah, but it was still a great scene.
It was a great scene, but they really should have spent more time on it, because they could have split, and then they could have been taking shots at him, and
exactly.
he could have been zipping around and fucking
their shit up. They never broke formation.
Yeah, the whole time.
Well, you know what I thought when I was watching that? I was thinking, born to be mild. They were born to be mild, those bikers. They're law-abiding sorts for a bunch of dickheads.
Yeah, I could literally just hear one of them in that moment saying, stay on target, stay on target.
Even if it's your ass, stay on target. Was there anything else about this episode that you guys particularly liked? I'll just go around the table. Mexican Iron Man, anything?
I've been running a joke called Black Wookiee Lives Matter, but I love that character. I love seeing him in it.
Yeah.
I like the way he's handling his body movements, his acting, whoever the actor is underneath there.
He's great.
I think he is a pleasant surprise character addition. And I've decided that I'm going to stop using the Disney language about legends. No, things to me are either canon or EU, and I'm rejecting all the shit that Disney said by telling me I'm supposed to call certain things legends and whatnot, you know. But I'm just telling you that addition of that character, I liked him before when he showed up, liked him again.
Yeah, he's awesome. Although his fight with Boba, back to Boba, like just wearing his underwear, pulled out. I mean, he should have been able to rip Boba apart, and instead they kind of grapple like it's some kind of WWE wrestling commercial. Really,
yeah,
like,
it was probably one of the lamest
match.
Star Wars fights I've seen in Star Wars history.
It was not good, and it belittled that character. But that character in Boba Fett have an enormous amount of potential.
Yeah,
I know that from the comics, and I know it now. I mean, I love their casting of that character. You're nodding, Coach. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Oh, no. I was just agreeing. As far as scenes go that meant a lot to me, Doomcock, as small as it was, I loved being able to go back inside Jabba's palace and see the droid EV-99, and not only seeing EV-99, but the droid actually had the same voice from 1983's Return of the Jedi, and at least they did that right, and I appreciated that. And the other thing, you haven't said anything about it, so I'm not going to give any details, but the very final scene, when they're talking about needing more muscle, that is definitely getting me excited, and I am really ready for the next episode.
Yeah. I can't help but wonder, guys, if this was originally like this Boba Fett movie script that they've chopped up. But of course, a movie script is only 2 hours. And so maybe all this shit was a lot of padding, and we're finally getting to the meat of the story. What is it now? So we're only got 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
Well, shit. I mean, that felt like kind of the first episode, honestly.
Exactly.
So maybe we're actually going to get going here. You know, what do you think? Nick, what do you think?
Yeah. I'm kind of up in the air a little bit on the final scene in here and us moving forward with this show, because I really thought that they should have really written this character. Boba Fett has so much potential. He should be able to carry the show himself without any other previous popular characters coming in to like save the day or to save the show. You know, that's really my only thing. But I am looking forward to. Are we allowed to talk spoilers here?
Maybe.
Or
we've done a few little things that are fairly obvious. Nothing huge though.
Okay, so the music at the end of that episode, which everybody believes that it's referring to Mando coming.
Right.
You know, so I'm excited to see that. I think it'll add to the show for sure. If that actually happens, which I mean, I believe it will. But I really wanted to. I had different expectations for the show as a whole than what we've gotten so far. But we still got 3 episodes left. I could absolutely love the next 3 episodes of this show, and really just start from episode 4 and watch the end of the series. I mean, as it stands right now, you know, by the time the series ends, I would tell somebody that hadn't seen it, just start at episode 4.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what are you going to miss out on?
Yeah.
Other than the cool monster in the desert. But other than that, no, I agree entirely.